Hi, my name is Carissa Delgado, and I am a English language arts tutor at Wiggs Middle School.
And my name is Brittany Knight, and I'm an English teacher at America's High School in the Socorro Independent School District.
And for our final project, Brittany and I decided to revise a 8th grade curriculum unit, specifically focusing on poetry, because I felt that poetry was one of the most difficult things that students had a hard time comprehending.
When we first started this project, we really didn't have, a specific direction in mind, but we did know that since we both work in education, in the education field, that we wanted it, whatever we did for our final project, we wanted it to be relevant to teaching in some way. But I guess even more specifically, we wanted it to be relevant to our students. As Carissa mentioned, poetry is an area that many of our students really struggle in. It seems that they're unfamiliar with the vocabulary, the structure, formatting, the ability to infer, making those inferences, sometimes annotating interpretation, and then actually the actual process of composing poems, original poems on their own. And since they seem to struggle so much with all of these areas, a lot of times students will just give up. They just don't want to have anything to do with poetry, and it's really detrimental for them. Since we both live and work in El Paso, we did decide that not only did we want to deal with poetry and helping kids develop their poetry, we also wanted to make it a little bit more culturally relevant to them. Huge populations of the student that we work with, they identify with the Latino or Hispanic culture. So our hope was that when we incorporated more of the culturally relevant content into a poetry lesson, that those connections that they would be able to make with that material, with that genre, Latino poetry, would kind of up the interest level and just make them feel a certain level of appreciation for it, and that ultimately that appreciation would kind of help guide them towards understanding poetry a little better, and then ultimately help them on the writing and reading portion of the STAR test as well.
So for poetry, the STAR test expects that students will be able to understand, make references, and draw conclusions about the structure and the elements of poetry. And I felt that based off of the way that the curriculum was written, that students were not able to achieve those things that the STAR test was asking them to do.
I think originally we were a little over-ambitious. Since Carissa works in the El Paso Independent School District and I work in the Socorro Independent School District, when we first sat down and we were really talking about this project proposal and what we were going to do for our clients or which client we wanted, we were just like, let's just do it for both. Let's do it for El Paso and for Socorro. Before we actually sat down and tried to accomplish that, we just realized that was just going to be so much, and that if we did it that route, that we wouldn't really be able to do it justice. So ultimately, we did decide to go with the Wiggs Middle School.
Therefore, I presented the idea to my boss, Ms. Sandra Torres, who is the literacy coach there at Wiggs Middle School, to see if we could make the curriculum more culturally relevant, so that way students were able to accomplish the things that the STAR test was asking for. I approached my boss, and she liked the idea. We immediately went over all the curriculum unit, and she sent it to me through email, and I sent it to Brittany, and from there we have been back and forth emailing each other and revising the text. We have also been in contact with my boss to see what she has thought about the revisions that we have made thus far, and she really loves what we've done, and she has been very supportive during the whole process.
We decided to go that route, and actually I'm really pleased that we were able to do that. Sandra Torres has been an amazing person to work for. She's been an amazing client. She's been very clear in her expectations and communicating what she wants from this. And a lot of times those clear instructions just really, really helps us, Carissa and myself, to fully develop our idea to its fullest potential. We always knew that for our edited text that we did want to do the curriculum. So for For the most part, that hasn't really changed much. So we did decide to kind of gear it more towards poetry and more towards culturally relevant texts, but also to keep those elements of vocabulary at the same time. But for our originally created texts, the texts that we were going to create completely from scratch, we at first thought we would do some type of newsletter announcing the research, the benefits, something that could be sent out to the parents, to the students, maybe sent out large scale via email. But it was definitely going to be more, I guess, more research based than it was going to be anything else. And that was our original plan. However, since Carissa did work so closely with Sandra Torres and she was in constant contact with her, Ms. Torres did tell us that one of her concerns was that our curriculum was basically in teacher jargon, and that's what it was. Essentially, it was the TEKS, which stands for the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, which is the guideline that we teachers have to go by when it comes to creating our lesson plan. So naturally, for Chris and I, that is predominantly where we pulled a lot of our information from, was from the TEKS. And that's how we were able to incorporate this lesson between vocabulary, culture, and poetry. We were able to draw from everything and then kind of pull it together and organize it. And yeah, that was the main point of our project. But for the most part, if you are a beginning teacher or a substitute, or if you're just unfamiliar to the education world at all, then it's kind of difficult to understand the teacher jargon, the TEKS. And furthermore, one of the issues that Ms. Torres did specifically let us know about was that if it was a novice teacher, a new teacher, maybe a first-year teacher, maybe a long-term substitute, if they were to look at this curriculum, it would actually be really difficult for them to look at the verbiage in the curriculum and then to translate that verbiage and that idea into actual lesson plans in the classroom. So when we were communicating with Ms. Torres and she let us know, it kind of was like an aha moment for us that we should create lesson plans.
The first lesson plan was my lesson plan, and that focused on Latino poetry, and I picked Pat Mora as the author, and I picked 2 poems from book of poems titled Dizzy in Your Eyes, and I felt that the 2 poems were really relevant to a preteen or teenager or 13-year-old student, because they dealt with authority and coming into your own skin. And so I made a lesson plan I made a lesson plan based off of the 2 poems.
The lesson plan that I created kind of took a step away from the Latino poetry, only because, yes, a huge portion of our students do identify with the Latino culture, but that wasn't our only goal in this particular curriculum. Another huge goal would be developing citizenship, developing tolerance, that all culture is relevant, not just the canon, not just Caucasian, not just Latino, not just African American. All cultures are relevant, and all cultures are deserving of that recognition in the classroom. So I also decided that I wanted to incorporate Native American poetry into our unit as well. So for my lesson plan, I created something that was called 2 Voices lesson plan, which is where you have a poem that is designed to be read orally aloud that incorporates one opinion, person 1's opinion, person's 2 opinion, and that it's read chorally out loud, so it sounds very, there's a nice melody to it, there's a nice flow, it's able to adequately incorporate 2 cultures, in this case, together into a responsive poem that is really actually meaningful and is actually quite enjoyable, not just to write, but actually to perform out loud as well, which is its sole purpose. Also, we have included a 2-week, a bi-weekly calendar that if this curriculum was to be adopted, what an actual thematic unit would look like. So those lesson plans that we've created we were able to pull that from the calendar that we created, just to kind of show exactly the flow, the beginning, the middle, and the ends of the entire curriculum unit.
The most rewarding experience from this final project, I would say, would have to be being able to work with a partner. Brittany was really great to work with. Although we had conflicting schedules, we made it mandatory to stay in touch. And so we would either text each other, or call each other, email each other, any form of communication we used to talk to each other about the project. And we were always talking about it, and we were always on point with each other. And I think that we gave great feedback to each other whenever one of us had a question. The other great thing about this final project was being able to revise any sort of text. And I really appreciated that because I liked the curriculum idea.
The most rewarding part of working on this project so far has been our ability of working with an amazing literacy coach. Her inputs, her ideas, her suggestions have been invaluable in my own classroom. As well as it's just really personally rewarding to be able to feel like you're actually making a difference in students' learning. I know for myself that's one of the main reasons that I decided to go into teaching to begin with. And also it has been an amazing privilege to work with such a partner who is as focused and as dedicated to this project as I am.
I think that by being able to revise the curriculum, it showed me that this is something that I do want to do in the future. And I wouldn't have had that opportunity if you did not give us the assignment to choose any text that we wanted. The most difficult thing about this project was the conflicting schedules. When we were going back and forth with my boss, I did not factor in the time for STAR preparation or the STAR testing. And so there were days that she was not available and that we had things that needed to get looked at, but she was not available, so she couldn't do it. And then even just with my own schedule and Brittany's schedule, we both have conflicting schedules and we both have classes on different days, so it was hard to sometimes it was hard for us to talk about what we needed to get done, but in the end we made it happen, and I'm very grateful for that.
The downside, or one of the most challenging aspects of this, has been definitely our schedules. It's very difficult. Her and I are both graduate students. Our class schedules don't match up. We're both working in the education field, so it's not like we could communicate during the day. Basically, all communication had to be in the evening. But we also had our classes and our private lives. Chris is a mom, I'm a mom, we have our family, we have our family duties, our family responsibilities. It was very difficult. I'm so grateful that her and I were able to be flexible enough in our communication, texting each other, emailing, calling. If something was supposed to be done and couldn't be done for whatever reason, we were always very communicative. Upon completion of this project, Chris and I have collectively, between the two of us, we have adapted, written, revised, edited, proofread. A total of about 40 pages are in our project portfolio.
Overall, I really like this project. As I said before, I knew that I wanted to do some sort of curriculum writing, but now that I was able to fully revise a curriculum unit, I am definitely interested in pursuing that in my future, and I really liked that I had a dependable partner to work with, and that I had a boss who was open to my ideas, and that I also had a professor who was open to the idea of revising a curriculum, because we are in the education field and we definitely want to make an impact on our students' lives. And I think that by doing this project, we definitely did that.
I've also been lucky enough to kind of experiment a little bit with what this unit would look like. I was able to kind of test run it with my own students. So my students have viewed the film, the movie Walkout. They loved it. Actually, they were really, really enthralled by it. It's an amazing movie. It's an amazing film. They've also read a few chapters of Sherman Alexie, and they actually did their own poetry lesson recently where I actually gave it a test run between the haiku poetry, the two voices poem, adding adjectives, a little bit of grammar, a little bit more vocabulary. So without further ado, here are just a few of my students commenting on their opinions of this lesson.
So I like the movie because I really feel related to it. I think that it's really hard being Hispanic, especially if you don't know like the language and all of that.
It showed students that they shouldn't be downgraded for who they are, and they shouldn't take any disrespect from anybody, and they should be happy of their culture. I thought poetry was alright. It let students express who they were in different ways.
Well, many Chicanos have used poetry to show their feelings.
I thought it was pretty fun and exciting seeing different forms of poetry.
We wrote haiku, two voices, adjectives, and emotion.
Mine was a haiku because I thought it was pretty easy. Art.
I liked it because I learned lots of things about poems. Haiku was my favorite poem because it helped me express myself and feel stuff.
That's awesome.
How long does it have to be?
That's good. Okay. All right.